Okay. Okay, so we're back, and at this point in our application, we have a class that basically manages our pending notifications. It tells us when, or we query our class for pending notifications, and we abstract it away such that it becomes portable, and we could use it other places, other projects, other places in our view controller. So here we say get pending notifications, and at this point we haven't created any local notification, so it makes sense that we'd have 0 pending requests. Great. Now let's go over to our create notifications view controller. We have our text field ready to go. We have our date picker also ready to go. Our date picker has a date picker changed method, so as we change it, we get updates about that. Great. So right where we have our date picker changed, actually, let's create a time interval. Let's create a time interval here because our notifications, remember I said we have 3 types of local notifications. We have time interval notification, we have location notification, and we have calendar notification, okay? So our app will be based on a time interval notification. I'll create a time interval variable here. Time interval is seconds, right? Time interval is based on seconds at some point, right? Which is also represented as a double, right? So we've seen numbers like that from our JSON files. Like if you see some like a 6-7 digit number of like an int number, but it's more like a double, that's a time interval. So time could be represented by seconds. Seconds from 1970, seconds from some point in date. Yes, weather app had, yes, I think it had time interval there, right? So you would have to take the time interval and convert it to a date, right? And that time interval is from 1970, for example, and you could create a date object from that time interval. With ours, we'll take the date and we'll create a time interval from that date. The date will be from the date picker.
Maybe not the most important, but why 1970?
That's like a Unix standard time there. You could read more about it. That's like when time became standardized, for lack of a better word. Like a standardized Unix time. Okay, so here we have done, pressed, we have date picker. So here we'll capture time interval. Time interval. And we'll create our time interval from the sender's date. Remember the sender is the date picker. Our date picker has its date. And here we'll say time interval since now. So time interval since now creates a time interval based on that exact time that we change our date picker. So time interval since now creates time. Okay. One thing we want to protect ourselves against, we don't want our user to create an event or some time interval before our date. So we'll use a guard statement to protect our code against that. Sender date, only if sender date is more than the current date. Else just simply return. And why are we doing this line of code? To avoid time being in the past. And there's one more bug, let's fix it before we continue. Back in our time interval, let's give it a default value. Time interval, we'll give it a default value of date. What are we going to use here? We'll say date, and we'll say time from now plus 5 seconds. So current time plus 5 seconds. Just 5 seconds, like now, like a local notification for if in case the user comes, they don't use the date picker, it would crash the app if it's nil. But here, very similar to like an int, we're giving it some default value. Here we give it a default value of now, like 5 seconds in the future. Right?
Wouldn't that always make the date picker to be?
No, the date picker is going to override that value.
Oh, okay.
But if in case I come here and I just create an event and I do not use my date picker, it will just do it 5 seconds in the future.
Right, but I'm just asking, because right now we're saying that it's equal to date plus 5, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then we're saying that the date picker has to, the sender/date has to be greater than date.
We're protecting our app if in case a user comes to this view and they create a local notification without changing the date picker. Because if I don't change the date picker, I'm not coming down to this logic here.
Right,
Do you agree?
right.
But if my user come in and they just like click on the done button, it will create a local notification.
With that date plus 5.
Exactly. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because other than that, the value would be nil.
Okay.
It will crash the app saying cannot create a time interval with 0. Right? Very good. All right, so how are we doing so far? So we have our time interval here. We have our time interval here. Great, let's keep going. Let's create a function now to actually create the local notification. So create a function, we'll call it create local notification. Step 1 in creating a local notification. This is the actual heart of the app here. Step 1 is to create the content. And we create the content with a UN notification, UN mutable. We create the content using a UN mutable notification content class. Okay? Mutable means change. Mutable was used a lot in Objective-C, so as we'll see here, this is very Objective-C API. Mutable means I could change that particular content, okay? Like with request, you don't see it, but in Objective-C, there's like URL mutable request, there's URL request, right? There's mutable and there's immutability. Everybody? So here we want to change the content, so we use UN mutable content. This is the first step. And what does our content have? Somebody was asking earlier about the model. Think of the content like the model for the notification. That model, you could give it all the data you want. You could package that notification with all the data. You could give it a title, you could give it a subtitle, you could give it an attachment, right? You could also give it information in the user info dictionary. There's a lot of things we could put in our notification. We'll start with the basics today. So we'll say content has some title. And the title, we'll grab the title from what? From the text field. So we'll say title text field dot text. In case there's nothing there, we'll say no title, because title expects a string, not optional string. Next up, we'll create an ID. The content needs an ID, so here we'll create an identifier. Say that again? So we'll create an identifier, so we'll say let identifier. We'll use UUID here, which we've done before, to get a unique string. So this gets us a unique string, and this is going to be our ID. What the content could also have, we don't have the UI for it, but I could say subtitle here. And for now, I'll simply say learning local notifications. It could also have a body. I'll say local notifications is awesome when used appropriately. Can spell. Can't spell right now. Looks weird. Okay. Title, body, subtitle, that's fine. I said attachment. Attachment is going to be a bit of a tangent. So I could create an attachment here. It's type attachment. And it's an NS, not NS, UN, notification, attachment. The attachment needs an ID. So here we'll give it the same ID we have up top, identifier. What did I call it? Did I not call it identifier? We need an image URL, which we'll get. Options will say nil here. Oh, I put my identifier at the bottom, sorry. So we need that identifier here. So we'll change this identifier to identifier. And we need an image URL. Where are we gonna get the image URL from? I will slack out. Do we have access to a Swift image? We've been using some Swift image lately, right? So put a Swift image, actually not in the assets folder. Be very attentive here. The resource we use for this attachment needs to not be in the assets folder. So go ahead and follow what I'm doing here. So right click on any of the files, say add files to local notifications, and navigate over to where you have, I'll just grab in any image I have. I'll use a duck for now. Okay. Basically, you add in a file. So we all have assets on our folder, on our desktop. Yes, we all have assets.
Can you go back to the attachment?
Go back to the attachment. We haven't finished it yet. 1 second. Here, it's not complete yet. We still need that image URL. So please just grab an image and not in the assets folder. It needs to be outside of your assets folder. Everybody? Any image you want, because we'll associate an image with our local notification. That image needs to be part of your bundle. Okay? So that image needs to exist as part of your bundle. Here I have a duck image, which I'll use.
What did you put to add? Like, did you pick one of the files from the add new file, or you just tried?
Add new file. So right click, add files. Yeah. And not in the assets folder, right? Okay, so let's go now and continue. Attachment, I'll say if let image URL equal to my bundle. Anytime you want to access anything from the bundle, you have to use the bundle class, right? Our JSON file, our MP3 files, and here I say main, and I'll say URL or resource, we need for URL for resource. URL for resource. Yeah. URL for resource with string and extension. That's the one we need. Nothing else. URL for resource with string and extension. The resource, make sure to put the exact name. In my case, I have duck. And the extension, I have a PNG file. So if I look at my PNG file here, I have duck.png.
So to do that again, we make a new file inside of our actual project?
Don't make a new file.
No,
You
right click.
Yeah, and then you say add files.
And you say add files to, okay.
And then find one of your assets. Yeah, very good. So at this point, we have the image URL. We now will copy that, or cut rather, that attachment code we have, and we'll put it in here. And now we have the image URL. It's an optional. That's why we use an optional binding here. And now this actually throws. So let me stop here before I move on. We're trying to have an attachment associated with our notification. We added an asset to our project. In my case, I have a duck image. We use the bundle class to access that resource. Whatever your resource is called, you put it in the first argument. In my case, it's duck, lowercase, I say duck. Extension is PNG. If your extension is JPEG or whatever it is, you need to put that in there. And then inside of our if let block, we'll actually create the attachment. And right now we're getting an error because UN notification attachment throws. So we'll have to put it in a do catch. If you're done, basically take line 40 and put it in a do catch, right? So do let attachment, and in the catch block, you would have a print statement with an error. Okay? So next step, I'm going to cut this, and I'm going to say do catch here, and I'm going to paste it in. And I'm going to mark this as a try. I'll build, make sure I have no errors. If I do have an error, I'll catch it in the catch block. And here I'll say error with attachment, error. And let's just put an else block here if in case there's a next problem with the image itself. We'll just simply say image resource could not be found. Great. And we have our attachment. The last step in the whole attachment process is to attach it to our content. So here we'll simply say content.attachments, right? So the content has a attachments property, not attachment. So you could have one attachment or you could have many. It expects an array. So we say content.attachments, and here we give it an array of our one attachment. You could have other attachments as well, but we only have one.
Attachment here is just for me to able to look.
Yeah, like normally when you have a notification, right, you could 3D touch on it and see like an image. Or not even that, like you see the notification, there's an image at the top right. That's the image we'll see. Cool? Very good. Yes?
Why did the image different and why we didn't put it in the assets?
No, local notifications has to work with the model, not in the assets folder. It has to be outside the assets folder and accessed via the bundle.main. Very similar to our JSON file. It won't see it in the assets folder. Okay? Very good. Very similar, like if you have an MP3 file you want to play, it won't see it in the assets folder. It needs to be outside the assets folder. Okay, so moving on, we have our attachment. Make sure to attach it here. We have title, body, subtitle. And keep in mind, there's also a user info here we could have. We'll come back to it. I'll put a to do here. User info dictionary can hold additional values or data. And the user dictionary I'm talking about, it looks like this. You could say content.user.info, which is a dictionary, and you could give it key value pairs, but we'll come back to it later. It makes it even more portable, right? There's so many things you could do now with your local notification. You could package it with so many more things. Good. So we have our attachment, we have our content. Let's go ahead. We need a request. Very similar to URL session stuff, very similar. So here, let's create a request. We'll say let request. Oh, the request might need, let's see first. I might have to do my trigger first. So UN notification request also takes an identifier, which we do have. The content we also have. The trigger, we don't have the trigger yet, but I'll just write trigger here. The trigger is one of those 3 triggers. Let's put trigger here. Create a request. We'll create trigger. And we have 3 triggers, right? So 3 possible triggers. 3 possible triggers for local notifications. We have time interval. What else we have?
Calendar.
We have calendar. And what's the last one?
Location.
Location. Awesome. So here we are creating our trigger. And the trigger is going to be UN time interval trigger. And what does that trigger need? Let's see. Trigger needs a time interval, which we just happen to have, a time interval. And it needs to know, am I repeating this? I'm not repeating that, so I'll say false. False is, if I set a timer for 5 minutes, for example, if I'm doing a track workout, and I say for every 5 minutes, go ahead and set off. So that's the repeating part of it, everybody? So every 5 minutes, it would go off. Does that make sense? If I'm doing time intervals? But here, we're not making any time intervals. It's just one set and done. So here, repeats false. Okay? But if it was to be recurring, very similar to a calendar, notification. If every Tuesday I have a meeting at 1, I want to create a recurring event, I will make it repeat true. Everybody? Yes? Okay. So here we have our trigger, and we have our trigger here. Great, great, great. Again, very similar to URL session. When you are done with the packaging the request, now we could go ahead and add it to our notification center. So we've packaged, we've created the request, and now we need to hand off the request to the notification center current singleton. Everybody? Until I do that, it's not added. It needs to go ahead and add it to the queue. So the last step is to go ahead and add it to notification, add request to the UN notification center. And here we have access to it as well, right? We called it center. Did we not? We don't have one here? Okay, so UN user notification center dot current dot add. So here we add in the request. The minute we add the request, it's now part of the pending. So here we add request. Add request, put the request in here. Completion handler, we could have an error here. So if, is it optional? Let's see. If error is optional, if let error equal to error, else. So if we have an error, we'll just go ahead and print error, add in request. And here, error, else, we'll just say request was successfully added, build. And that ends our one function, right? So as we see, we wrote a function for that one bit of code, right? The function does one thing, it creates that request for us, that notification for us. And what we're going to call it, we'll call it when the user clicks on the done button, right? Only when they click on the done button, we'll actually call this function. Questions? Yeah. We can. Let's start from the top. It's one function we have. This is good. So here at the top, we're creating a local notification. That's the heart of the day topic, right? So a notification starts with the content, right? The content. What is the content of that notification? Everybody? What is the content of that notification? For our notification, the content will be the title. We have a title. The title will come from the text field. We could have a body. Right now we hard coded in the body because we only have one text field right now. Everybody with me so far? Next, you could also have a subtitle. There's a lot we could have in our content notification. Importantly, you need an ID. Here, our ID is unique to every notification we create. If you have one particular notification you want to be able to override, I would hard code an identifier. Does that make sense? If I only have one notification I want to override, like if I recreate it, it doesn't create a new one, but it just overrides it, I would pretty much just put a hard-coded string in there. But with ours, we always get a new ID every time we create a new notification with our identifier. Any questions about that particular one there? Next step, we said we want to go ahead and attach a photo. Your head is down, madam. You wanted to go over it? Okay, cool. We're good. So we want to create an attachment. We want to have an attachment, a photo to our local notification, correct? Actually, it's empty. Sorry. So we added a photo to our content, yes? We said content.attachments. In order to do that, the photo needs to be in the bundle. Not the assets folder, but the bundle. Anywhere but the assets folder, it will be able to see it. Next, what trigger are we creating? Mel, are you writing notes in that too?
Yeah.
What trigger are we creating? Are we creating a location notification? Meaning like when somebody enters a region, we fire up our notification. Are we creating a calendar notification? Or are we creating the time interval notification? Those are the three. Next, like with our session and everything else before that, very similar paradigm, we create a request. The request takes in an ID. What notification am I referring to? The content. What content does it have? And lastly, the trigger. What type of notification is it? After that, we go and we hand off that request to the UN Notification Center. And now it's, when this code runs, it will be in pending notifications.
So because user notifications.current is a singleton there, is why it's not creating a new instance.
Yes.
Because you have one.
Yeah, exactly. That would not work correctly if it was different instances. Very good. Okay, cool. So we have that. Let's go off to our done button here. So in our done button, we could go ahead and call our create local notification. So when the user clicks on the done button, our function happens. Everybody with me? Questions? Any questions about that? Okay, let's go ahead and run the app and see if we miss anything. So run it. Run the app and go to add something. I'll just say test in here. If I swipe down, it doesn't get created. Everybody with me? For it to get created, I need to click on the done button. So I click on the done button. I get out of the app. And I have a notification. Do we see the notification here on my screen? So let's walk through this again. I'm going to go back in the app. Oh, we need to put a dismiss on the done, by the way. Let's fix that.
Okay, how long do you see the notification?
1 second, 5 seconds, because we didn't change the date picker. That's why we put that in there. When I click the done button, just put a dismiss here. In our done button, put a dismiss. Yeah. So what we're gonna do, create a notification, click done, exit out of the app. Everybody with me? Everybody with me? Create a notification, click the done button, and exit out of the app. Okay? Then we'll see the notification appearing after 5 seconds. Because right now we haven't changed the date picker. If you change the date picker, that's a different notification there. But for now, enter the view, add a title, click on done, and exit out of the app, and wait for the notification. So let's go again through it together. Let's go through it together. I'm in my app. I click on the add button here. I add some notification here.
This says 0 pending request.
Because it's gone already, it's delivered. Okay, so here we have duck, and then we click on done. I exit out of the app really quickly, because 5 seconds. I wait. And I have a notification here saying learning. If I long press on it, I should see my image. Yes? Are we seeing our images?
Maybe I should put 10 seconds.
Yeah, we'll do it again.
Put 10 seconds. I'm not moving.
You can put 10 seconds. Yes, sir.
Why do you have to exit out of the app?
We'll fix that. As of iOS 10, this is fixed. You could see it in the app now. But we haven't done the code for that. Good question. Okay, somebody wanted me to do it again? We good? Are we all able to see? And you long press on the notification, you'll be able to see your image. Tanya? Yes, sir.
Are the constraints on this?
Constraints, this guy.
subset? I'm just asking because like, what if it's a big picture? It shouldn't be, or what?
This is given to us. This is given to us. If you want to go one step further, you could create your own, you could customize.
I mean, more so because this is the size of the wall,
Mhm.
right? So it's not gonna adjust the size of
It could, based on the content.
Okay.
Yeah? But if you want to go one step further, you could customize what this looks like. Why even know? Come on. Yes? Do the whole notification thing again? Okay. Let's add, we could make it, let's go to our notification controller, our create controller, and let's make it 10. It's up to you if you want to change this. 10 seconds, right? I run my app, right? I click on the add button. I say mail here. And then I click done, and I exit out of the app, right? And I wait. And now I have my notification. I long press on it, and it shows me my duck. Cool? For the options, you could silence and stuff like that. All right, deliver quietly, like if you want people to see. Yeah. Does it show up? You able to long press? Okay. Okay. All right. A good place to go now is David's question. Do I have to exit out of the app to see the notification? So let's go ahead and answer David's question with some app delegate work. Actually, we'll keep it here. Actually, we'll keep it in the pending notifications. Okay, so back in our notification view controller, let's fix this a little bit. This is this. Let's go back to our notification view controller and answer David's question about, do I have to exit out of the app to see the notification? Because right now we can't see it if we're in the app. Everybody? Right, so if I'm in the app here, let me put 5 seconds actually. 1. Okay, I'm in the app. I click here. I say test. I say done. I'm waiting. At this point, 5 seconds is gone, right? No notification appears. So let's make that notification appear in the app. So in our notifications view controller, let's go to the very bottom. Make an extension. You know where we're going. You've seen this before, huh? And here we'll say UN notification center delegate. Well, I need to conform to something or buy something. Notification controller conforms to our UN. Every time I say UN, I think UN. Okay, so we have our UN notification center, and if we take a look at the delegate, if I just jump to my delegate here, what are we interested in? We're interested in the protocol method that says will present notification, right? So this method will be called on the delegate only if an application is in the foreground. So only if my app is in the foreground. What does foreground mean? It's on screen, okay? Background, you kill the app, or you went to Springboard, or you went to a different app. If the app is in the foreground, that's the app you're using. Everybody with me? So this protocol method only works if the app is in the foreground. So let's go ahead and implement that method. Will present. So let me go back here. So in here, I'll say will present. So I type out will present and I press enter. It has a completion handler. Did you not see it?
No, I guess my screen wasn't wide enough. It was like.
Okay. So will present completion handler, that's the only thing we need to implement here. We need to implement the completion handler, and here we say alert. That's the only thing we need to say. I only want to show an alert when I'm in the foreground and my notification has went off. That's all I need to do here, nothing else. But one more thing, what else we need to do?
Sent it as the delegate is equal to self.
Very good. Very good. So here our view controller in our view did load somewhere here. I'll say center.delegate equals self. So here I'll just simply say set in this view controller as the UN notification center delegate. Okay, cool. So now we should be able to run it and test it. So let's go ahead, run the app. Go back to the delegate. Here?
So how come it doesn't come onto the, so if I was to put like a date picker and make it, even if I made it like a couple minutes later or something like that, right? Is that when it will show on the?
We haven't done the code for that.
Oh, okay.
If you want, you could keep going with that, but we haven't done. You have the class, you have the delegate, you just have to call load whatever.
Yeah.
That's it. Okay, so Chelsea, you good? Okay, so let's run it and test it. I thought I ran it. Okay, let's run it and test it. So go ahead here and do Chelsea and click done. Okay, so here it works, right? I'm able to see the notification in the app. I'm also able to long press and see my full duck image. Was everybody able to confirm that? Very good. Cool, so we're doing things. Last thing we'll do, well, if we have time, we'll do one more thing after the last thing. But we wanna populate our table view. We have most of the code in place, but we want to populate our table view. Right now, let's go ahead and create some notification here. I'll call it lunch. And I'll change my date picker to say 1. Oh, I think we have a next thing here too, probably. There's probably a next error on this.
If we get an error on the trigger, is it saying
Let's see if I could get that error on my end. So if I click done here, let me run my app again. Right now I have pending one request. I have to run the app again because my delegate is not really working yet. I haven't updated anything. At that point, did you have that error, Shania? Oh,
Put it in your did set.
what? Once you press done on it, what's the error say? What's the error say? Is time interval nil?
Because we.
Time interval is not really going on. Well, what do we write down? Yeah, we updated that. Remember we updated that to date, what was it? Date plus time interval from now plus 5 seconds. You want me to go down? Mel? View did load. View did load. Okay, so we're making progress. We have a request, but we're not showing it yet. So let's backtrack here and see what's happening. Does my delegate method get called? We have one more thing to do.
Oh, it doesn't get called.
But why? Why isn't our delegate method getting called?
We didn't set the cell as delegate.
Is it a cell though?
Is it the cell? Well,
If we look at our create notification here, our delegate, there's no cell here, right? It's not a cell, it's a view controller, but we need an instance to that view controller in our notification, yes? That's the only way our delegate will work. We need to set that instance somewhere. Where can we get that instance? If I was to leave the project right now, there's nothing else with notification for now on this project. It has everything to do with Unit 3 or Unit 2, maybe. I need to get an instance of, going back to our notification view controller here, I need to get an instance of the create notification controller. How can I get that? Segue, very good. See this guy, by the way. So prepare for segue, we'll use prepare for segue because prepare for segue gets called. Yes, we're not using it, but remember we're segueing from A to B, right? So let's go ahead and do that. So right below our view did load here, right below our view did load, we'll say prepare for segue. Right. So, so right in our prepare for segue, let's go ahead and write some code. So guard let, I won't give it a name yet. We will say segue.destination. By the way, keep in mind the destination is, I'm sorry? I heard. By the way, keep in mind that the destination, what's the destination right now?
The create notification.
Is it?
We're inside of the notification view controller, right?
this is the
Navigation. Right? So if we look back at our storyboard,
Oh, because it's in a navigation controller.
yeah, exactly. So if we look at if we look at this guy, right? This guy, segue, is the nav controller,
Yeah.
right? So we need to get to the nav controller, get to the first view controller, and then we have access to it.
So was it navigation controller first?
Yeah, so here we say as UI, navigation controller. Be nice to me. UI, navigation controller. So here I'll call this nav controller. Okay, so we have the nav controller. Then I'll say create VC for now, and I'll say nav controller dot view controllers dot first as create, else we are done here. So fatal error. Let's open this up so we could see all our code. Let code not downcast to this And at this point, we have what we need. We have our create VC, so we could say create VC dot delegate equals self. A bit of work, but we got what we wanted. So now we set the, this is okay here. I thought we haven't implemented that. So we had 2 steps to do. Tiffany, so you couldn't see your table view yet. You still have 2 steps to go. And even after that, we still have 1 more step to do. Our extension, right?
Yeah. Oh, for the delegate.
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
We first get the nav controller. The nav controller has the create notification.
No, I didn't put my letter.
And now we have an error because we're not conforming to the create delegate. How we doing? We have 1 error, correct? All right, let's go fix that. Can we go or no? We good? Almost? You guys could do delete. Delete is probably part of the lab. So we have to do delete together. Right?
It's just deleting off the table view though.
It's just delete, and you have to remove it from the notification center's request of pending request.
Oh, but I'm sure it has something on it that will
Exactly. With identifier.
okay, yeah. Oh, and the identifier is what we gave.
Yeah, the content. The content knows its identifier.
And each stream is.
Yes. Very good. Okay, so let's continue on here. Our last extension of the day. Notification, view controller. What are we conforming to? Create delegate. And this guy has a dead create notification. And what do we want to do here? So when we get an update here, we have a load notifications, correct? We simply call load notifications. And load notifications, it queries the class, right? It queries the class for the pending notifications, and we probably have to have a did set there on the table view for the table view and the notifications. That'll probably be the last step to get our request showing.
And the okay, so notification just said would just be table view that reload data?
The did set for the notifications.
Yeah, it would be table view that reload
Yeah.
data.
And you're coming back from a background thread, so dispatch. And then you could create a series of pending requests in the future. Oh, our self-for still needs a title. App has so many moving parts, doesn't it? So, are we good with this? Did create notification? Yes?
No. Yes.
Cool. All right, very good. A couple things we have to do. So our load notifications here updates our notifications. That's great. But back in our notifications, we don't have a did set yet. And here we'll say did set. And we come back from background thread, so we'll say dispatch queue here. Main async. And what are we trying to update? Our table view, reload data. That's that step. And then back in your self-for row, you need to get a notification. And at minimum, just get the title for that notification. Okay? And then show that for your cell. So at minimum, just show the title. Whatever title you created in the self-for row, index path row, notifications, index path row, get a notification, notification.request, right? Or content, one of those. In the self-for row. We'll get there. Segue. Yeah, just the title for the notification. I mean, we have a subtitle, right? So you could get the subtitle too.
So, okay.
The detailed text label, just give it the subtitle for the, because we have both of those, right? We have a title, subtitle, and body. So you could use either of those two. Shania, good? Okay, next step we said we're going back to our cell for row. Our cell for row doesn't have any code now. Let's get a notification from the notifications array. Index path.row. So at this point we have a notification. We could say cell.textLabel.text equal to notification.content.title. And I could also say cell.detail text label.text equal to notification.content.body for now. Doesn't really matter here. It's fine. What's that?
The label, the subtitle won't be too, oh, I guess.
You could put a subtitle on the body. I mean, we could do many things, but the heart of it is just making sure our table view loads correctly as we add things in and showing that exact notification. Cool. All right, let's fire it up.
You want to change the
What haven't changed? I'm sorry?
Nothing.
Oh, look at that. It just works, right? That's like one of the things, like, we need bugs, right? Okay, so we have one pending notification. It shows up in my table view with lunch. If I create the next one, what's today? Tomorrow is, I'll create one tomorrow. I'll say call location, lesson at 10.
Now, what happens after the 5 seconds pass and the notification is clear? That's where we delete, or it doesn't delete on its own?
We'll add a refresh control. So 10 a.m., I say done, it just shows up, right? Because our delegate works. We don't have to rerun the app. Everybody with me? So at this point, delegation is becoming almost like a second language for us, like, right? Or first language, depending on where we go in there, right? We want to update something, we use delegation, that's what's happening here. The minute I create it, it shows up, location lesson. Yeah?
No, I was gonna say that before it was showing it, you're right with refresh control, because it really is gone.
Yeah, refresh control will add it now.
Yeah.
So if I add something, it shouldn't like just refresh it to see what's my pending. Exactly. So let's do that now. David? Where's David? So we answer your question, right, of showing the alert in the app. Next, we want to, Tiffany's asking about if I have something that's pending, it's delivered already, I want to refresh it. So we'll just add a simple refresh control for that. How many people have been using refresh controls in the app? Or remember, like, refresh control, right? Why are you trying to hide, man, are you?
No, I said I don't know.
Okay. Trying to hide there. There's no way to hide. Okay, so back in our notifications view controller, let's create a refresh control to answer Tiffany's question here. We'll say let, it's not a let, it's a var, refresh control of type UI refresh control. To refresh our memory, refresh control is when you pull down. When you pull down, you have that effect of the spinner reloading your data. Okay, so we'll create one. Refresh control, we'll set up here, we'll say private function configure refresh. And a refresh control is on table view, it's also available on a collection view. So whatever we're doing here, you could do it on a collection view as well. So refresh control, let's give it values, UI refresh control, initialize it rather. And at this point, we will say table view dot refresh control. The table view has a refresh control, very similar to collection view, refresh control. And we want to call some function. When that happens, the function is load notifications, right? Which we need to update to a at Objective-C function.
Wait, can you go up the refresh control? You didn't have the private, you didn't have it, okay. So you just put it there, but you didn't.
Yeah. But let's make sure we call configure really early here. So call configure after your table view. And we need to add a target to our refresh control.
Sorry, so we do have to load notifications in this function or no?
In the configure refresh control, no, we'll have an add target action. And the add target action will be looking for load notifications. But just make sure you update it to Objective-C. So back in our load here, just make sure you say at Objective-C here. Cool, everybody? Because right now we're doing a selector, and the selector works with at Objective-C functions, okay? So now we could go ahead and update or finish our refresh control, add target. And who's our target? Luba? Where is it looking for that function? Self, right? And our selector is load notifications. What is the value, or what is the event that I'm looking for? Value changed. And right, let's see, we pull it up, we need to stop it at some point. We'll stop it in, we'll stop it in here somewhere. Okay, go ahead. When you pull, it starts automatically, but we need to end it. We'll end it in the completion handler. In the completion handler where you get the order request, this is a good place to end the refresh control, but you need to dispatch it because it's a UI element. Okay. In the completion handler for get request. Good? We good? Okay, so back here, that's where I've gotten my request. At this point, we just want to stop the refresh control from animating and remove from the UI. Dispatch queue main self refresh control and refreshing.
We don't tell it to start refreshing.
No, the minute you pull down, yeah, exactly. It's not like the activity indicator.
Yeah, it's like start animating.
Exactly. So you could test it, right? You could create like a random, like the 5-second one. It's gonna get called. You pull down. If it crashed, something is probably nil. Refresh control is nil because you haven't called configure refresh control in the vivid load.
What are you talking about? Yes, I did.
Where did you call it? Did you call it before or after load?
I did call it.
Yeah.
Call it now.
Very good. All right, let's test it out. Run the app. We have two pending. We pull to refresh. There's nothing pending. I go just enter some random thing there, random. Done. Random is here. Let's see if random actually shows up. Random shows up here. I could long press on it. I see my duck. Close out of it. Pull to refresh. And it's gone. Cool? How we doing? We good?
I got a thumbnail while you listen.
Make sure that you call your refresh control, your configure refresh control. Those are one of those things like we have to, as developers, know when something is nil. That's like the best error, really. If it's nil, I know I haven't set it somewhere, and I could retrack where I haven't set it or called it. Better than SIGBERT. Okay. Last step, and I'll feel better about myself and where we are. I want to be able to delete. Everybody, please. Yeah, or not. We have 8 minutes. We have 8 minutes.
That's all we need. What we need to know is how to remove from notification center. We know how to do table view. We know how to do that.
There's a get remove request with identifier.
Okay, that's all we need.
Yeah.
So if you would just
Are we good? Do we want to see delete or are you guys good? Because that's part of the lab.
Yeah, we want to see it.
Yes. Is there a way to like make the notifications stay for a longer time?
Stay for a longer time.
Like
It's 5 seconds. It's around 5 seconds. You cannot change that. It's about 5 seconds or so by the system.
It doesn't make sense though, because if you get a notification, normally it remains until you swipe it away or something, so you see it.
That's on the home screen, sir. Yeah. Cool? Or if it's a calendar thing from the system, that's going to stay there. Because Apple controls the ecosystem.
I have crashed.
Let's see what the error is there. If you have a phone, you could run it on your device and put silent mode. Do we have sound, by the way? Before I say what I'm saying here.
sound up there. No, we did alert.
So that's not going to work. 1 second. Back here. Oh, we haven't had sound. Everybody, please update this. More important than delete. Everybody, please. Your content, just say content dot sound equal to default. If the device, well, if the app only works in the background and the app is not on okay. And then here I'll say, I'll put a to do, not really a to do.
That's a different sound from the request notification permissions alert.
Yeah, that one is just an alert. That one is actually like if the app is in the background, you'll hear like a ting or some sound. But here I'll say, you can also import your own sound file. You don't need AV Foundation. All what you need to do, you see like how we have the duck.png there? You add a file, .mp3, and it would be something like this. You'd say content.sound equal to UN notification sound and named and UN notification name, and there you give it a raw value of whatever your song.mp3 is. So, does that make sense? So you could test that out offline. So, but you wouldn't have two, obviously. You would just have either or. Does that make sense? But you have to have that file living somewhere, like right where the duck is, and then have it on, like not silent, and then you would hear that sound there. Cool? It would be something like that. MP3, OGG, and M43 or whatever it's called. Right? Cool. Okay, so I think we're good. I'll just slack out anything we need for the delete. Is that fair? Sure. Or you guys want to do it in 5 minutes? Yeah. Knowing that you have the code and you could go back and see what the code looks like. All right, cool. All right, so let's kick it off. We go to our view controller, go to our data source, self-row. I'm at self-row, below self-for-all, I type in commit. Commit is that function that allows you to swipe, right? So the minute I say commit here, if I run my app, I could swipe left and I see the delete button. Everybody? Everybody? Right, so if I run my app at this point, like right now I can't swipe. Like if I swipe, there's nothing. But if I run the app again, by just writing that function, it now listens for swipes, okay? We haven't done any logic, but it listens for swipes. I can't delete anything, but it listens to the swipes. Everybody with me? All right, so let's keep going here. We'll say if editing style equal to delete, then we will we will delete the pending notification. Okay. We'll have a helper function here, private function. Call it remove notification. Remove notification at index path. Okay, cool. And here we simply call remove. We simply call remove notification at index path. We pass the index path. Couple steps here. One, remove notification from UN notification center. Remove from array of notifications. Yes, sir.
The reason why we create the function over here and not doing it in the notification class.
I mean, you can.
Okay.
Yeah, and just pass it and just delete it, right?
Okay, cool.
And then lastly, we'll say remove from table view. Cool. What's that? What's that?
I said the way he said it sounds very simple. Why are we doing it this way?
Oh, okay. All right.
I'm asking, I really want to know.
You'd have to pass it, just pass it the index path, but you still have to do the code over there. It just takes the code away from the view controller, but you still have to do it in the class.
Ah,
Yeah? It's not gonna magically just remove itself.
I know.
We're still, the same code here, we have to write it in the class. But yes, we have the class already, we could just have like a remove on the class. That's like what he's saying there. The pending notification class, just have the function, have a function in there, say remove.
Oh, and then you just call it like dot, whatever. Oh.
And then you would, yeah, exactly. So here, let's go on here. Well, first I need to get a notification here. So let notification equal to notifications index path.row. Now I have a notification, great. I could say on my UN or my center dot remove. I'm looking for remove pending notification request with identifiers, right? You could remove all pending notifications. That's like you can up your whole table view. You remove everything. In our case, we want to remove an individual notification. We use remove pending notification request with identifier. And here we need to pass in some string. Let's see, we just write the identifier here. It's probably better. Notification dot identifier, and then just pass in identifier here. Okay, so we did step one, great. Next, we'll say notifications array dot remove at index path, that row. And lastly, we'll say table view remove or delete rows index path here, and we'll say automatic. At that point, we'll test it. The best way to test it is like with one of the 5-second notifications. I create something 5 seconds, swipe it really quickly, it should not show. That's like the test there. Everybody with me? So basically, you remove a pending, and it's not gonna get delivered because you removed it from the queue or from notification center. Cool. All right, let's test it. I'll test it first by letting the notification fire. Fire. This is gonna fire, great. Refresh. Now let's create a next one. Try again. Done. Swipe really fast, and let's see if it fires. Doesn't fire. Works as advertised. Cool? So we saw the entire app, right? Almost. There's always more things there. I'll add more things to the app as I see fit. For example, probably date or something there, as opposed to like this, or maybe interpolate date. So you could sort by date, and then you guys will have like a app to like see later. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Whenever I have to select out version control and refreshing, the app crash.
What's the crash say?
The crash, it says the crash is optional, and I'm not sure.
Okay, I'll come and take a look at it, but most likely something is nil and it's trying to access there. That's like one of the things that's not local notifications anymore. It's like we have to get better with debugging code where there's optional values being crashing our app. We have to get better at that. Cool. Any other questions with local notifications in general? Right? Any other questions? Yes, we could take all that code and put it, well, not all the code, because our class doesn't know about table view, but we could take some of that code and pass it over to our class. Everybody sees that? Obviously, the view controller stuff will still need to be there, like the deleting of the row, but the notification, I mean, you're not even moving much, actually, here. Probably only this part, right? Or 2 lines of code, probably, you moving over to the class. But it still keeps it encapsulated, and it's better there. Let us quickly go over the heart of what we did today. The heart of what we did today was in this create local notification function. That's why we wrote the function, right? That way, when you want to deal with notifications, you go back to that function. The function creates a notification. What do you need to create a notification? You need the content, right? Those are the big things. You need the content. You need an identifier. If you're doing attachments, you need to get that attachment from the bundle. You need one of the 3 triggers. You create a request, and then you hand off that request to the notification center. That's it, right? The rest of it was just like creating an app around it.
I have a question. So, in the last 2 steps for removing notifications, why don't we just like load the notifications and get it instead?
Why don't we what?
Why don't we just load the notifications?
That reloads the whole table view.
Is there a problem with that, or?
I rather remove one cell,
Alright, that's fine.
okay? As opposed to doing reload the entire view,
Okay.
okay? If you have 1 million records, you have to reload the entire 1 million records.
Okay.
But you're removing one notification. If it was like remove all requests, just reload the thing, that's fine, or whatever, right? But since the user only wants to remove one row, right? That's why the API is there for us. Remove index path, and then you're done. It's a smoother operation. It's very streamlined, very nice. Okay, any other questions? Cool. So we have enough for our lab here in the afternoon. We'll stop here. Thank you.